The Substance is unbelievable. In a good way. Horror's been in an interesting place in the 2020s. Though you could say we were riding a horror high going strong since 2015 or so, after near a decade of A24-style mood pieces, I was ready for something new. Not only did I get it, I got something unreal. Writer-director Coralie Faja's previous film, Revenge, showed promise, though it did have some script issues. How did she survive this? Her organs are gone. Unless she's a ghost. But the filmmaking was really impressive. One of the best looking movies in recent years. Reminds me of a cross of the grimy desert setting of Wake and Fright and the aviator sunglasses vibe of Top Gun. It was an uneven but visually beautiful revenge thriller. When I watched that, I thought, with a better script, this director's gonna go far. But when I looked at her IMDb page, I saw it was the only film she ever directed, and she had nothing else in production. It's taken 7 years, but with her second feature, oh my god, did she. We open on a shot of a newly cracked egg being injected with the titular substance. Right here. This is brilliant. This lets us know right off the bat how the movie's main mechanic is going to work. We also get to know the quirky, morbidly against the grain tone this movie expects us to roll with. All that without a single line of dialogue. Next we get a creative time-lapse sequence of our main character's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. From its construction, to the height of her fame, to its slow, painful fading with time. Demi Moore stars in what could be considered a huge career comeback and maybe the best role of her career. Margaret Qualley is the other side of the coin. Beautiful and bratty, she's the star that might just crash the whole thing if she's not careful. Also, the fact she looks exactly like a young Demi Moore certainly helps. Dennis Quaid plays a sleazy Harvey Weinstein-style producer. I'll be honest, if there's a weak point in the movie, it's him. For a film with such measured performances, he comes off a bit too over the top. And all these close-ups of him eating really didn't add anything for me. He's gross, I get it, but I got it without these shots. It manages to walk the line between the supposed dramatic complexities of elevated horror and the visceral, blood-curdling gore of 1980s classics, like The Fly, The Thing, and even Frank Henenlotter. Story-wise, it plays like a cross between split-personality character studies like Jekyll and Hyde and Fountain of Youth fables like Cocoon. A really, really messed up, gory version of Cocoon. Anyways, after being let go from her job, Elizabeth gets T-boned looking up at her own billboard being torn down. Despite being given a clean bill of health, she's distraught when a male nurse sneakily offers her a solution. I love this. It's literally like someone in the medical profession abusing their access to drugs. Remember this character. Through a cryptic series of phone calls, Elizabeth gets in contact with the provider, who have her make her way to a sketchy old storage unit. I love how the door to the storage unit only opens halfway, as if to say, if you really want this, you really have to put forth the effort. She finally obtains the substance in the form of a green serum, a clear nod to Herbert West Reanimator. Something I've really missed in movies is the use of color to indicate important story elements. After a lot of gray, bland-looking horror movies the last decade, this movie's visuals live in my head rent-free. They look like a twisted, candy-colored version of a glamour magazine. Speaking of the look of this movie, I love when movies create their own world, even when it's strange and anachronistic like this one. When she gets home, she injects the substance, and I can't show you any of this, but it has to be seen to be believed. But a younger version of herself springs from her back. Describing a lot of scenes in this movie, they could come off unintentionally funny with a lesser filmmaker. The only catch is, every 7 days, she has to switch back. 7 as her younger self, and 7 as the old. And she has to take stabilizer fluid drawn from the original to preserve her new body. As the voice on the phone says, "You are one." It doesn't take long before Sue starts to abuse it, taking more than 7 days on her end, leading to Elizabeth's body aging rapidly. This can be taken as a perfect metaphor for destructive habits when you're young, having damaging effects on your health when you're older. Welcome to my TED Talk. But seriously, hard living feels great in the moment, but can age you prematurely. Calling the supplier, she finds the damage done is irreversible. She hesitates, but she continues on this path anyway. Okay, remember the nurse from earlier? We find out that guy's also on the substance. Being that guy's pretty up there, we have to wonder, did his younger self abuse the substance too? There's seemingly a light in the darkness, though. An old nerdy classmate who she met earlier asks her out on a date in a friendly way. At her lowest point, reluctantly, she agrees. There's a lot of extravagant scenes in this movie, But somehow this scene of putting makeup on is one of the most intense in recent years. Reminds me a horror version of the phone scene from Swingers. Her scraping the lipstick off just to put it back on again. This gets to the heart of the character. She hates herself. She doesn't even consider herself good enough to go out with this random guy whose opinion bears no consequence on her life. So Elizabeth starts to resent Sue becoming a self-destructive recluse. But again, like the provider says, you are one. Meaning she really resents herself. Sue is also disgusted with Elizabeth because of her lifestyle. And this time she decides she's not going to switch back at all. She draws 3 months of stabilizer fluid from the original body and refuses to turn back until after the big New Year's event for her show. Just before the big night, she runs out. Becoming deathly ill, the provider tells her she needs to switch back in order to replenish the stabilizer fluid. When we finally see Elizabeth again, she's transformed into a mutant hunchback creature, unrecognizable from the original person she was. Her scream and reaction is one of the most disturbing things I've ever heard. Sue abused her time on the substance so much that Elizabeth essentially is turned into a little old lady, even starts dressing like one. Just when the movie seemed like it was about to be wrapping up, I paused it and saw there was 25 to 30 minutes left. This made me wonder, what could possibly happen next? Was there going to be a 20-minute monologue about animals like In a Violent Nature? No, when I finally saw what they were planning, it made this movie even better. Seeing that it's ruined her life, Elizabeth finally decides to put an end to it and terminate Sue. But just when she's about to go through with it, she stops. This is where we get the confession that underlines the whole movie.
I hate myself.
Even after the complete destruction of her life, she still can't get rid of Sue. But then Sue wakes up at the worst possible moment, the first time in the movie we've seen both characters conscious at the same time. Seeing Elizabeth was about to kill her without context, Sue decides to take action into her own hands and kills Elizabeth. But remember the rules? You are one. They're symbiotic. One can't live without the other. Realizing without Elizabeth, Sue will die too, Sue decides to do the crazy thing and take the substance again. But this is a one-time use thing. I wonder what'll come of this. One of the best body horror effects of all time is what happens. This is where the movie kind of descends into full-on surrealism. Either you can roll with that or you can't. For me, the movie already built up more than enough goodwill for me to roll with it. Either you're going with this vibe or you aren't. She limps to the theater in her monstrous new form wearing a cutout of Elizabeth's old face. I found it hilarious how the security and makeup people believe this is Margaret Qualley. She's not even wearing her character's face. Guess they only see the smiling face on the outside. Somehow she makes it to the stage, but after all that, they still don't accept her, attacking her, calling her a monster like one of the old Frankenstein movies. When she fights back instinctually, like it's not even her choice anymore. She's truly lost control of the image. Her repeated cries of "I'm still me" fall on deaf ears. Eventually her mutated head detaches and crawls back to where it all started. Her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She imagines herself being admired one last time before dissolving, literally, and being swept up the next day by a street cleaner. Just goes to show everything people admire about you doesn't last. It's here and gone in an instant. Addictive and dangerous. In the end, the only one you have to live with is you. Some say the ending went too far. In fact, a lot of people said that. I disagree. I've noticed that as kind of a pattern a lot lately. I couldn't be happier. The thing about a lot of A24 and Mike Flanagan style series, not the movies, is that they rarely if ever want to go there. They know their audience and they typically don't want to be grossed out. While this certainly doesn't make them bad, in fact, most of them are pretty damn good, they do feel like they undercut themselves a little bit, leaving the experience feeling a little toothless. The Substance is the furthest thing possible from toothless. In fact, it's almost perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, horror is back.